สวัสดีค่ะเราทั้งสองคนขอต้อนรับทุกท่านเข้าสู่การประชุมวิชาการสถาบันพระปกเกล้าครั้งที่ 26 ประจำปี 2567 นะคะภายใต้หัวข้อสร้างสะพานประชาธิปไตยจากฐานรากเพื่อความยั่งยืนของประเทศไทยค่ะโดยวันนี้ค่ะการประชุมวิชาการในครั้งนี้เราจะมีการจัดในรูปแบบของออนไลน์เป็นจำนวนเวลา 2 วันนะคะในวันที่ศุกร์ที่ 1 พฤศจิกายนและวันเสาร์ที่ 2 พฤศจิกายนค่ะเราสามารถรับชมการถ่ายทอดสดผ่านช่องทางหลักคือ Facebook Page ของสถาบันพระปกเกล้าและนอกจากนั้นค่ะเรายังจะมีพันธมิตรที่ร่วมถ่ายทอดกันไปในครั้งนี้นั่นคือสถานีโทรทัศน์ไทย PBS สถานีวิทยุโทรทัศน์รัฐสภาสถานีวิทยุกระจายเสียงแห่งประเทศไทยสถานีวิทยุโทรทัศน์แห่งประเทศไทยสมาคมสื่อสะอาดและอปทนิวค่ะพิธีกรก็จะพูดนะคะและด้วยวิสัยทัศน์ของสถาบันพระปกเกล้าในฐานะสถาบันวิชาการชั้นนำนะคะที่มีภารกิจสำคัญยิ่งใหญ่ในการพัฒนาประชาธิปไตยธรรมาภิบาลและสันติวิธีเพื่อประโยชน์สุขของประชาชนอย่างยั่งยืนได้เล็งเห็นถึงพลังของประชาธิปไตยจากฐานรากจึงได้จัดการประชุมในครั้งนี้ขึ้นนะคะในประเด็นหลักคือการสร้างสะพานประชาธิปไตยจากฐานรากเพื่อความยั่งยืนของประเทศไทยค่ะพิธีกรก็พูดถึงเป้าหมายนะคะแล้วใช่แล้วค่ะประสบการณ์และองค์ความรู้ที่ผู้เชี่ยวชาญรวมถึงตัวแทนจากแต่ละภาคส่วนอันนี้พารากราฟที่จะเชิญเข้านะคะใช่แล้วค่ะเดี๋ยวตอนจะบอกใช่ค่ะประสบการณ์และองค์ความรู้ที่ผู้เชี่ยวชาญรวมถึงตัวแทนจากแต่ละภาคส่วนนำมาแลกเปลี่ยนเรียนรู้กันในระหว่างต่อไปนี้นะคะจะนำไปสู่ประชาธิปไตยที่ยั่งยืนอย่างไรตลอด2 วันนี้เราจะมาร่วมหาคำตอบไปพร้อมๆกันค่ะและในลำดับนี้ค่ะจะขออนุญาตเรียนเชิญท่านเลขาธิการสถาบันพระปกเกล้านายวิทยวัฒน์ชัยภาคภูมิขึ้นกล่าวรายงานการประชุมวิชาการสถาบันพระปกเกล้าครั้งที่ 26 ประจำปี 2567 ขอเรียนเชิญค่ะ
กับเรียนนายวันมุฮัมหมัดนอมัทาประธานรัฐสภาในฐานะประธานสภาสถาบันพระปกเกล้าในนามของสถาบันพระปกเกล้าและคณะกรรมการจัดงานประชุมวิชาการสถาบันพระปกเกล้ารู้สึกเป็นเกียรติและขอขอบคุณเป็นอย่างยิ่งที่ได้กรุณามาเป็นประธานพิธีการเปิดประชุมวิชาการสถาบันพระปกเกล้าครั้งที่ 26 ประจำปี 2567การประชุมวิชาการครั้งนี้สถาบันได้ดำเนินการจัดประชุมผ่านระบบออนไลน์ระหว่างวันที่ 1-2 พฤศจิกายนกระผมขอรายงานความเป็นมาและวัตถุประสงค์ของการจัดงานประชุมวิชาการสถาบันพระปกเกล้าดังนี้อันนี้เข้าพารากราฟก่อนเชิญนะคะกิจกรรมหลักของการประชุมวิชาการครั้งนี้ประกอบด้วยการแสดงปาฐกถาจากผู้ทรงคุณวุฒิการสัมมนาทางวิชาการทั้งการอภิปรายมุมมองระหว่างประเทศและการอภิปรายในห้องย่อยในเรื่องประชาธิปไตยจากฐานรากโดยการจัดประชุมวิชาการครั้งนี้ได้รับเกียรติจากวิทยากรผู้ทรงคุณวุฒิทั้งในและต่างประเทศเป็นอย่างดีบัดนี้ได้เวลาอันสมควรแล้วกระผมขอเชิญท่านวันมุฮัมหมัดนอมัทาประธานรัฐสภาในฐานะประธานสภาสถาบันพระปกเกล้ากล่าวเปิดการประชุมวิชาการสถาบันพระปกเกล้าครั้งที่ 26 ประจำปี 2567 ขอกราบเรียนเชิญครับ
เลขาธิการสถาบันพระปกเกล้านายวิทยวัฒน์ชัยภาคภูมิคณะกรรมการจัดการประชุมวิชาสถาบันพระปกเกล้าผู้บริหารคณะอาจารย์วิทยากรนักศึกษาและผู้มีเกียรติทุกท่านกล่าวโดยสรุปได้ว่าประชาธิปไตยจะอยู่ได้จะต้องประกอบด้วยการขับเคลื่อนทั้งด้านบนและด้านล่างที่เข้มแข็งต้องอยู่ร่วมกันและไปด้วยกันและสร้างภาวะอภิบาลร่วมเปรียบเสมือนต้นไม้จะเติบโตได้จะต้องมีหลายส่วนประกอบกันอย่างเข้มแข็งและเมื่อประชาธิปไตยจากรากฐานเกิดขึ้นความรู้สึกถึงคุณค่าของพลเมืองที่จะสร้างสังคมสันติสุขยั่งยืนน่าจะเกิดขึ้นได้ด้วยพลังของพลเมืองเองบัดนี้ได้เวลาอันสมควรแล้วผมขอเปิดการประชุมวิชาการสถาบันพระปกเกล้าครั้งที่ 26 เรื่องสร้างสภาประชาธิปไตยจากรากฐานเพื่อความยั่งยืนของประเทศไทย และหวังเป็นอย่างยิ่งว่าผู้ที่สนใจทุกท่านจะได้รับประโยชน์จากการประชุมทางวิชาการในช่วงตลอด 2 วันนี้ ขอบคุณครับ
ประชาธิปไตยจากฐานราก Bottom up Democracy เพราะเหตุใดพลังพลเมือง จึงเป็นสะพานสำคัญสู่การพัฒนาที่ยั่งยืน เมื่อสังคมปัจจุบันถูกท้าทายด้วยปัญหารอบด้าน ไม่ว่าจะเป็นปัญหาด้านความเป็นอยู่ ความเป็นธรรม ความยั่งยืน หรือความรุนแรง ประชาธิปไตยจากบนลงล่าง จึงถูกตั้งคำถามว่าอาจไม่ใช่คำตอบสำหรับทุกปัญหาที่สังคมกำลังเผชิญ เพราะเป็นประชาธิปไตยที่ให้อำนาจบริหารแก่กลุ่มบุคคลหรือองค์กร ที่อาจทำให้เกิดความผิดปกติ และนำไปสู่การใช้อำนาจแบบเบ็ดเสร็จ แต่ยังมีประชาธิปไตยอีกแบบหนึ่งที่เรียกว่า ประชาธิปไตยจากล่างขึ้นบน ซึ่งกระจายอำนาจสู่ฐานราก นั่นคือ ประชาชนผู้เป็นพลเมือง ที่เมื่อมีการรวมกันจะสร้างให้เกิดอำนาจและพลังที่แข็งแกร่งขึ้น ซึ่งสามารถนำไปสู่การขับเคลื่อนแนวคิด ที่ก่อให้เกิดการเปลี่ยนแปลงที่ยั่งยืนได้ การสร้างสะพานประชาธิปไตยจากฐานราก เพื่อความยั่งยืนของประเทศไทย จึงจำเป็นต้องกระตุ้นให้พลเมือง เกิดการรวมตัวกัน และใช้ความคิดสร้างสรรค์ ในการสร้างการเมืองในวิถีของตนเอง โดยเฉพาะพื้นที่ที่มีท้องถิ่น และมีภาคประชาสังคมที่เข้มแข็ง จะทำให้เกิดการยอมรับความแตกต่าง หลากหลาย และเกิดความเสมอภาคเท่าเทียม เรียกว่าเป็นการเมืองที่ก้าวหน้าไม่ยึดติดกับการเมืองเชิงสถาบัน ซึ่งประชาธิปไตยจากฐานรากนี้ จะนำไปสู่ความกินดีอยู่ดี มีความสุข และช่วยให้เกิดความยั่งยืน ลดการแบ่งแยกทางสังคม จากการมีส่วนร่วมของชุมชน ด้วยการทำงานบนวิถีประชาธิปไตยที่มีการสร้างพลัง การไม่ทิ้งใครไว้ข้างหลัง การรวมกันเป็นหนึ่ง การมีธรรมาภิบาล และที่สำคัญอย่างยิ่งคือการมีสำนึกพลเมือง ประชาธิปไตยจากฐานรากจะเป็นประชาธิปไตยที่สร้างภูมิคุ้มกันให้กับสังคม และทำให้เกิดความยั่งยืน เกิดความสุข เกิดสันติภาพ และเกิดความรู้สึกถึงความเป็นธรรมในสังคม สถาบันพระปกเกล้าในฐานะสถาบันทางวิชาการที่มีภารกิจสำคัญในการพัฒนาประชาธิปไตย สันติวิธีและธรรมาภิบาล เพื่อประโยชน์สุขของประชาชนอย่างยั่งยืน เล็งเห็นถึงพลังของประชาธิปไตยจากฐานรากในการพัฒนาประเทศไทย จึงได้จัดให้มีการประชุมวิชาการสถาบันพระปกเกล้าครั้งที่ 26 ประจำปี 2567 ขึ้น ภายใต้หัวข้อ สร้างสะพานประชาธิปไตยจากฐานราก เพื่อความยั่งยืนของประเทศไทย เพื่อเป็นเวทีเสวนาในการแลกเปลี่ยนความรู้ทางวิชาการ ประสบการณ์เกี่ยวกับประชาธิปไตยฐานราก ในการส่งเสริมค่านิยม และการมีส่วนร่วมของประชาชนในระบอบประชาธิปไตย เพื่อนำไปสู่ประชาธิปไตยที่ตั้งมั่น และยั่งยืน และณบัดนี้ขอเชิญแขกผู้มีเกียรติทุกท่าน ร่วมเสวนา รับฟัง และเปิดมุมมองใหม่ ของการสร้างสะพานประชาธิปไตยจากฐานราก เพื่อความยั่งยืนของประเทศไทยไปด้วยกัน
ค่ะลำดับต่อไปนี้นะคะจะขอนำทุกท่านเข้าสู่การแสดงปาฐกถานำในหัวข้อ Building Bottom Up Democracy for Sustainability นะคะซึ่งจะช่วยให้เราได้เห็นภาพของประชาธิปไตยจากฐานรากในประเทศไทยไม่ว่าจะเป็นเรื่องของความเข้าใจในประชาธิปไตยจากฐานรากรวมถึงแนวทางการส่งเสริมประชาธิปไตย และการพัฒนาประเทศในมิติต่างๆให้เกิดความยั่งยืนด้วยประชาธิปไตยจากฐานรากค่ะในโอกาสนี้ค่ะก่อนที่เราจะได้พบกับผู้ที่จะมาพูดนะคะจะขออนุญาตเรียนเชิญท่านประธานกรรมการจัดงานประชุมวิชาการสถาบันพระปกเกล้าครั้งที่ 26 ประจำปี 2567 ดร.ชิงชัย หานเจนลักษณ์ขึ้นมากล่าวแนะนำในตัวของท่านที่จะมาพูดค่ะขอเรียนเชิญค่ะ
สวัสดีครับ สวัสดีผู้ชมที่รับชมอยู่ทางออนไลน์ด้วยนะครับ ก็เดี๋ยวดร.ชิงชัยนะครับก็จะเล่าประวัติแนะนำตัวคร่าวๆของนายปาร์คยงมินนะครับก็จะพูดเกี่ยวกับปาฐกถานะครับการแสดงปาฐกถาเรื่อง Building Bottom Democracy for
เช็ค1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 ดังไหมเช็คเช็คเช็คเช็คไม่ดังเหรอ
สวัสดีครับ ผมนายปาร์คยงมิน เอกอัครราชทูตสาธารณรัฐเกาหลีประจำประเทศไทย ต่อจากนี้นะครับ ผมจะขอนำทุกท่านเข้าสู่การแสดงปาฐกถาในหัวข้อ Building Bottom Up ซึ่งจะช่วยให้เราเห็นภาพรวมของประชาธิปไตยจากฐานรากในประเทศไทย ไม่ว่าจะเป็นเรื่องความเข้าใจในประชาธิปไตยจากฐานราก รวมถึงแนวทางการส่งเสริมประชาธิปไตยและพัฒนาประเทศในมิติต่างๆให้เกิดความยั่งยืนด้วยประชาธิปไตยจากฐานรากครับ ในวันนี้นะครับนอก
ภาษาอังกฤษช่องภาษาอังกฤษ1 2 3ช่องภาษาอังกฤษได้ยินไหมครับอันนี้ผมสวิตช์มาให้ที่ช่องภาษาอังกฤษได้ช่องภาษาอังกฤษไม่ได้ยินเหรอครับช่องภาษาอังกฤษได้ยินหรือเปล่าครับช่องภาษาอังกฤษได้ยินหรือเปล่าครับเดี๋ยวนะครับถ้าอย่างนั้นรอช่างแป๊บหนึ่งผมโทรตามช่างอยู่
ข้าราชทูตสาธารณรัฐเกาหลีประจำประเทศไทยกับผมปาร์คยงมินนะครับขึ้นปาฐกถาใน
ภาษาอังกฤษได้ยินหรือยังครับภาษาอังกฤษได้ยินแล้วนะครับขอบคุณครับภาษาอังกฤษได้ยินเรียบร้อยแล้วเพราะฉะนั้นทุกอย่างเรียบร้อยขอบคุณครับ
ขอบคุณครับ
ค่ะขอบคุณท่านเอกอัครราชทูตสาธารณรัฐเกาหลีประจำประเทศไทยนะคะสำหรับการให้เกียรติขึ้นแสดงปาฐกถานำในครั้งนี้ค่ะทำให้เราได้เห็นความเชื่อมโยงกันระหว่างประชาธิปไตยฐานรากกับความยั่งยืนได้อย่างชัดเจนมากขึ้นนะคะระหว่างนี้พิธีกรก็จะ wrap up ในส่วนที่ท่านขึ้นกล่าวปาฐกถาเรียบร้อยเสร็จก็คือทุกท่านคะวันนี้นะคะในช่วงบ่ายของหลังจากพิธีเปิดเสร็จนะคะเราจะมีการประชุมในหัวข้อย่อยอีก4ห้องนะคะโดยในหัวห้องย่อยแรกค่ะเราจะสร้างเป็นเกี่ยวกับการสร้างประชาธิปไตยจากฐานรากเพื่อความเป็นอยู่ที่ดีนะคะพิธีกรก็จะพูดไปเรื่อยๆนะคะโอเคค่ะพร้อมค่ะและสำหรับช่วงถัดไปค่ะเราจะขอนำทุกท่านเข้าสู่การอภิปรายมุมมองและประสบการณ์จากต่างประเทศในหัวข้อ Way Forward How to Build Bottom Up Democracy นะคะโดยวิทยากรและผู้ทรงคุณวุฒิจากหลายภาคส่วนค่ะในลำดับนี้นะคะจะขออนุญาตเรียนเชิญพบกับผู้ดำเนินรายการในช่วงนี้ค่ะท่านประธานกรรมการจัดงานประชุมวิชาการสถาบันพระปกเกล้าครั้งที่ 26 ประจำปี 2567 ดร.ชิงชัย หานเจนลักษณ์ขอเรียนเชิญค่ะ
ครับสวัสดีนะครับผู้ชมที่ชมอยู่ทางออนไลน์ทุกท่านนะครับก็ต่อไปนี้นะครับจะเป็นการอภิปรายมุมมองและประสบการณ์จากต่างประเทศนะครับเรื่อง Way Forward How to Build Bottom Up Democracy นะครับก็จะขอแนะนำสปิเกอร์ในช่วงนี้นะครับแต่ละท่านนะครับท่านแรกครับที่อยู่ข้างผมนะครับมิสเตอร์ชองเบียร์ครับครับก็จะพูดถึงเรื่อง Way Forward How to Build Bottom Up Democracy นะครับโดยเราจะแนะนำสปิเกอร์แต่ละท่านนะครับเริ่มที่ท่านแรกนะครับมิสเตอร์ชองเบียร์ครับประวัติของท่านนะครับก็ที่ผ่านมานะครับจดไปนะครับโอเคครับท่านถัดไปนะครับมิสคาเซนดาครับครับประวัติท่านนะครับครับประวัติท่านนะครับต่างๆนานานะครับท่านสุดท้ายนะครับท่านต่อไปนะครับมิสเตอร์อูเดตครับโอเคครับวันนี้เราก็จะได้มาแชร์กับมุมมองนะครับประสบการณ์จากต่างประเทศนะครับโดยที่จะขอเริ่มจากท่านแรกนะครับมิสเตอร์ชองเบียร์ครับ
ก็จะมาแชร์ประสบการณ์นะครับครับก็จะมาแชร์ประสบการณ์ไปเรื่อยๆนะครับพูดไปเรื่อยๆนะครับครับขอบคุณครับ
ครับก็เป็นประสบการณ์ที่ดีมากๆเลยนะครับในการสร้างประชาธิปไตยจากรากฐานนะครับโดยมุมมองของคุณชองปีแอร์นะครับก็เดี๋ยวจะเป็นในส่วนของท่านถัดไปนะครับที่จะแชร์มุมมองนะครับก็ขอเรียนเชิญมิสคาซันดาครับ
สวัสดีครับ เช็คทดสอบครับครับครับเช็คทดสอบครับไปเรื่อยๆนะครับก็จะบาไปนะครับครับผมก็สุดท้ายนะครับขอบคุณครับ
ขอบคุณมากเลยนะครับมิสคาซันดานะครับก็เป็นประสบการณ์ที่ดีนะครับในมุมมองต่างๆนะครับเอาครับท่านสุดท้ายครับที่เราจะแชร์มุมมองในวันนี้นะครับโอเคครับก็ขอบคุณทั้งสปีกเกอร์ทั้ง3ท่านนะครับขอบคุณครับ
ค่ะขอบคุณท่านประธานคณะกรรมการการจัดงานประชุมวิชาการสถาบันพระปกเกล้าครั้งที่ 26 ประจำปี 2567 ดร.ชิงชัย หานเจนรักเป็นอย่างสูงนะคะและสปีกเกอร์ทั้ง3ท่านค่ะพี่กรณ์ก็จะชี้แจงไปเรื่อยๆนะคะว่าในช่วงบ่ายค่ะเดี๋ยวเราจะมีห้องย่อยทั้งหมด4ห้องโดยหัวข้อต่างๆนะคะมีทั้งหมด4หัวข้อแล้วก็จะพูดถึงในเรื่องของว่าตัดจบโอเคสมมติว่าโอเคแล้วเดี๋ยวเราพบกันในช่วงบ่ายค่ะ
ข Good morning, participants. I'm Nattasit Susanusit and then Napa Klong Prayaban. We are the MC for the Congress today. So the concept of growing democracy from the base or bottom-up democracy for Thailand. That this Congress this time is organized for the 26th years. It's been going on every year. So what is special for this year, you can actually participate online. We have 2 days of the meetings, and throughout the 2 days, there will be live broadcasting to the Purple Cloud Facebook, KPI Facebook, as well as there are other agencies that are going also to broadcast the Congress, such as the Thai PBS TV station and the Parliament TV. And there are also the Radio Thailand station and the Opportun News. And for this Congress, the students of KPI, both current students and former students, can participate on the Congress through online. They can come in and attend all through the 2 days. And I would like to request the participants to log in at the Facebook page of King Prachatipak Institute. And on talking about the bottom-up democracy, if you look at a tree, for the tree to grow big and strong, it depends on the base, their roots. And democracy as well, it can only grow sustainably if the base, which is the people of the country, are strong. That means we have to ensure that the people have the strong understanding of the importance of building democracy. So this year, the focus is on bottom-up democracy. Apart from talking about it, in local areas, we know already there are work going on building democracy, but how can we ensure that we can achieve the success at the national level? I am sure that working at the base takes a lot of effort, but we have to rely on peace and governance and good governance, because there are variety of factors that will be contributing to this. And in each society, there are a variety of demands and needs. So how can we ensure that these base can contribute to the growth of democracy at the national level, and particularly sustainable growth? And then we know that there have been work carried out in the different areas and different communities. So we will be sharing the experiences from the communities, not just in Thailand, but we are honored to have the speakers and academics from foreign countries to share their experience with us today. So at this first session is the opening ceremony. I would like to invite Ajahn Witawat Chai Park Poom, Secretary General of the King Prachatipak Institute, to give a welcoming remark.
His Excellency Mr. Wan Muhammad Nomatha, the President of National Assembly, on behalf of the President of KPI Council, on behalf of KPI, I would like to show my gratitude to be for you to share the opening ceremony of the 26th KPI Congress on the theme Building the Bottom-up Democracy for Thailand Sustainability. This Congress we organize through online system through the 1st and the 2nd of November. I would like to report the background and the objectives of this KPI Congress as follows. When we talk about democracy, what cannot be missing is the power of people as the owner of sovereign. So the root of democracy is mean empower people who can make decisions. And when people gather, it will create strong power. It will lead to positive change. Bottom-up democracy is so critical for creating the social strength, social justice, and create happiness, peace, and eventually will lead to sustainability. That's why KPI as the academic institute with the mandate in order to develop democracy, good governance, and peaceful means for sustainable happiness of people. We attach importance for building bottom-up democracy. That's why we organize this annual Congress with the objectives, two main objectives. First, in order to be the public forum to exchange knowledge and experience to create the root of democracy with bottom-up approach with the civil participation in democracy. And second, in order to propose the guidelines for building up bottom-up democracy to promote the civil participation for the democracy sustainability. The main activities are the keynote address, the academic seminar from the international speaker and Thai speaker, and also the breakout session about the bottom-up democracy. And we got the honor from international and domestic speaker. And now it's a due time. I would like to invite Mr. Wan Muhammad Noor-Matha, the President of National Assembly, as the Chairman of the KPI Council, to give the opening remark on the 26th KPI Congress on the building the bottom-up democracy for Thailand sustainability. And to be honored for all of us here, we would like to invite him now, please.
Secretary General of the King Prachatipak Institute, the co-organizing committee of this Congress, executives, teachers, lecturers, resource persons, students, and distinguished participants. In the name of the President of the Council of the King Prachatipak Institute, I am very pleased and honored to chair this opening ceremony of the 26th KPI Congress on the theme of building the bottom-up democracy for Thailand's sustainability. Thank you all distinguished guests who recognize the importance of attending and exchanging opinions and experiences, and as well as presenting information related to the research and studies on building bottom-up democracy in this Congress. They will contribute to the recommendations to the development of knowledge on how to build bottom-up democracy to ensure people's participation towards the sustainable democracy. When we talk about democracy, it's important and necessary to mention the word people power. This it comes from two legitimate sources. The legitimacy of the bottom, from top to bottom, that means the legitimacy of the groups who have authority in administration, and the legitimacy from the bottom, from the base, that is the legitimacy of the people's power in managing their own lives and in developing the country's policy. We find that top-down democracy usually originates from groups that have the power or political parties, even though they come from people organizing together. But at the same time, political parties can be criticized as based on the groups of influential and powerful people, and the use of power sometimes also impede the development of democracy. Bottom-up democracy is the top-down democracy is not the answer to solve all the problems. Apart from sometimes leading to autocracy, but when we talk about bottom-up democracy, we talk about people gathering together, building their power that could move and drive the country towards the positive change. And whenever there's a problem, the social problems, there's always a question about the top-down democracy. In the current Thai society, there is a drive for people at the base and communities to get together in order to be involved in developing their communities and their towns, their local areas. So if this strengthened local administration can generate the acceptance of the participation, equal participation, and common understanding in create the ways of cohabiting. So that means that we can have political progress. So bottom-up democracy is the way that aims at building power together without leaving anyone behind, with the peaceful means and good governance, with the civil conscience based on discipline and the rule of law, where the people recognize their own values, their own rights and freedom and responsibility as citizens. In voicing their opinions, they can push forward their ideas toward having a good life together. Apart from this, society needs to have a good immunity built together for peace, sustainability, and justice in society. So therefore, for democracy to be sustainable, we need to have the top-down democracy that is secure and bottom-up, strong bottom-up democracy. Like for a tree to grow, to give shade and to bear fruits, it needs variety of factors coming together. When the bottom-up democracy is built, we can be sure that a peaceful future will be ensured for the citizens. I would like to thank the King Prachadipok Institute and all the resource persons and speakers who attend this Congress. And for the participants on Zoom, I have read the agenda and the names of the resource persons, the speakers. I could see that there are all experienced experts in their field. So I hope that you stay and participate in the Congress all through the 2 days. After this, a group of the lecturers of the King Prachadipok Institute will be visiting Republic of Korea to learn about their top-down and bottom-up democracy development. This will be from the 6th to the 9th. And so I'd like to thank all the members, committee members. Now it's the appropriate time. I'd like to open the 26th KPI Congress 2024 on the theme of building bottom-up democracy for Thailand's sustainability. And I do hope that all of you will benefit from these academic seminars according to the objectives of the organizers. Thank you.
Why public power is the bridge for create sustainability, why current society is challenged with all kinds of problems, livelihood, sustainability, justice or violence, bottom-up democracy or top-down democracy might be question that might not be the solution, because it's the democracy that empower to certain agency that might create the irregularity or authoritarian. But there's another type of democracy called bottom-up democracy that decentralize the power to the root, that are the people who are citizens. When they gather, we create the stronger power, will lead to implement the idea, create sustainable change. To build up bottom-up democracy for sustainability of Thailand, we need to encourage people to gather and use creativity to create politics in their own way, especially in the local areas that have the very strong civil sector, will create diversity and equality that create advanced politics, will not be adhere to institutionalized politics, and bottom-up democracy will lead to good livelihood, sustainability, reduce the social gap by working on democratic way to create power, by leaving no one behind, by uniting and have good governance, and most importantly to have the civil consciousness. The bottom-up democracy will create sustainability, peace, happiness, and create the justice in society. King Prachadipok Institute as academic institute with the mandate for developing democracy, peaceful means, and good governance for sustainable happiness of people, attach importance to the bottom-up democracy that will lead to the public power. That's why the 26th KPI Congress is organized under the theme of creating bottom-up democracy for sustainability of Thailand to be the forum to exchange the idea and experience of bottom-up democracy to promote the value and create participation in this democracy regime for sustainability. And now we would like to invite all distinguished guests to be involved in the seminar, listening and open the new perspective for building up bottom-up democracy for Thailand sustainability together.
แล้วครับก็กราบขอบพระคุณนะครับท่านเลขาธิการ
Thank you very much, the Secretary General of the KPI, Dr. Ajahn Wittawat, and also the Mr. Wan Muhammad Nomatar, who opened the Congress officially, who understands the whole picture of bottom-up democracy. And both of them have explained to us why bottom-up democracy is important, and at the same time we have both top-down and bottom-up democracy. But at the base, there's the importance of the base and the participation of the people at the base are important factor for sustainable democracy. Many people might say that people have to be active and really strong and democratic in a democratic way at the local level, and also to ensure the benefits for the communities and society. And I believe that in all communities, we do have heroes. We do have people who are ready to take up these tasks and of building bottom-up democracy. But probably the problem is the opportunities to do so. So yes, we do need to open a space for people's participation, and which is important. The next item is the experience from other countries, and we are honored to have the speakers from abroad to discuss and to make presentation to us. As we all know that all countries have difference in terms of culture and ethnicity and the type of administration, but they can help explain their experience so that we can adapt how and learn from their experience. The first country we will listen to is Republic of Korea. So Ajahn Chingchai Han Jenlak, who's the chairperson of this Congress, will introduce the first speaker. Good morning, everyone. This is an opportunity for me again to introduce our speakers in this Congress. First, I'd like to thank the President Wan Nor and the Secretary General of KPI. Now I will be speaking in English, and I would introduce the ambassador of the Republic of Korea, who is just in position for only 1 year.
Ambassador of South Korea to Thailand. The ambassador had came to us with a lot of idea and certainly can tell us about the experience in the country. Ambassador Park graduated from Yonsei University, and then he continued at the Cambridge University in international relations, ambassador. And when he graduated, he joined the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of South Korea, and he became the ambassador to Thailand in November 2023. So this November, you make 1 year. So it's a great honor to have you as our keynote speaker. So without any delay, may I give the floor to Ambassador Park, s'il vous plaît. Allez, please.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished participants. It is truly my honor and privilege to be here today. First, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Secretary General Vitas Chaipakhpum for organizing this meaningful event. Your efforts in bringing us together to discuss Thailand's democracy cannot be overstated. It is through gatherings like these that we can learn from one another and share our experiences. Today, I have the honor of delivering the keynote speech at this KPI Congress. I'm acutely aware that many among the participants possess greater credentials, qualifications, and expertise to speak about democracy than I do. This realization makes me question how much value I can add to our discussions today. Nevertheless, I remind myself that the purpose of today's gathering is to share our knowledge and experiences regarding the development of democracy. And each perspective matters. And as Ambassador of Korea, I hope to share our country's experience we have gained through our journey to democracy. Before I go on any further, I would like to announce that my presentation is personally prepared and should not be regarded as my government's position. KPI has framed today's theme as bottom-up democracy for Thailand's sustainability, rather than just simply democracy. And to make my intervention more effective, I'd like to discuss this agenda through two main points. First, how to cultivate our democracy. And second, how to lead sustainability with a well-functioning democracy. And let us first consider the question, how can a democracy be successful? We all understand how democracies fail. History has shown us numerous examples of democracies backsliding. We know that unchecked power can become authoritarian. Demagogues or populists can lead the majority to excess. Sometimes division and conflict can take democracy and make it a victim of its own success. These failures serve as a cautionary tales, reminding us of the vigilance that is required to protect democratic principles. However, pinpointing what leads to the success of democracy is more difficult, challenging, as it requires a combination of numerous factors, elements, and dynamics. These include good governance, accountability, transparency, the absence of corruption, the rule of law, national identity, civic discipline, literacy, certain level of freedom from security threats, and often certain level of freedom from poverty. This complex mechanism also makes it difficult for any democracy to function perfectly. Even countries that include the term democracy in their names do not always practice exemplary democracy. While we cannot pinpoint the key to the success of democracy, we can discuss what a well-cultivated democracy look like. To understand the condition of democracy, we must examine the values that the vessel called the democracy contains. I believe that democracy is not an ideology, but a way of doing things. Metaphorically, democracy is a vessel that shapes a political system, and what we put in that vessel depends on social consensus. For a system to be truly democratic, it must encompass liberalism. As democracy means rule of people, if the goal is not to increase the total amount of freedom enjoyed by all members of society, then democracy becomes empty. Pursuit of freedom is the very reason why democracy becomes a great system. In order to proceed our discussions any further, we need to agree on one thing. That is, pursuit of freedom is a universal value. Therefore, pursuit of liberal democracy is never tam kon farang. On the other hand, this process of maximizing the total amount of freedom also needs limitation. Friedrich Hayek, in his renowned book, Constitution of Liberty, presented an important principle for forming a liberal community. To protect everyone's freedom, it is necessary to restrict a certain freedom, specifically the freedom to infringe upon the freedoms of others. If everyone could infringe upon others' freedom at will, it would lead to bellum omnium contra omnes, where all are against all. In other words, while we pursue the liberalism, we face a dilemma. We can address this dilemma by adopting the rule of law, which aims for equality before the law. If some members become more equal than others, this is not rule of law. Rather, it is a rule by law. Republicanism embodies this principle. Republicanism puts more importance on res publica, in other words, on public interest, than on the private. Since republicanism seeks such restraint, the virtues necessary to maintain a community are referred to as republican virtues. However, in a constitutional monarchy, this may need to be expressed somewhat differently. In countries like Thailand, maybe traditionalism may play a role in upholding these virtues. I don't know what exactly it means, but Thailand may try to find a solution in the unique Thainess or Kwam Pen Thai. In short, we must maintain a balance and tension between the pursuit of freedom and the restraint to maintain the community, if we are to have a well-functioning democracy. If either side is neglected, either democracy collapses or society collapses. At the same time, we should be cautious of a license under the guise of liberty and of repression in the name of community. Thus, balancing and checking serves as a basic foundation of democracy. The systems that first invented and composed modern democratic governments share one important commonality. They are built on a deep distrust of power. They viewed power as inherently seeking to dominate, monopolize, and corrupt. If we compare our efforts for democracy to a race, countries that have led this race over the last 2 centuries have carefully designed institutions to check and balance important national institutions against one another. I think the United States serves as an example. The founding fathers of this country borrowed the presidency from monarchy, the Senate from aristocracy, and the House of Representatives from Athenian democracy. And these institutions are designed to check one another, with the judiciary overseeing them all. This experiment has relatively successfully lasted over 2 centuries. Its success can be attributed to the fact that these institutions are founded in a distrust and pessimism toward power. Based on the principles of check and balance, we can establish a society where no one can unilaterally decide the community's destiny. Yet everyone remains accountable for their social responsibilities. From this perspective, the criteria for determining true democracy can be clearly outlined, in my opinion, in 2 points. Number 1, are important decisions affecting the community, including the selection of leaders, made through ballot box? Number 2, does one state institution check and balance another, and vice versa? I believe we can discern democracy using these 2 categories or criteria. Then how can we fulfill these criteria? In truth, democracy is not a result, it's a process. This process is chaotic. If a system is not messy, it is likely that democracy is not functioning well. And perhaps that's why a person like Winston Churchill said that democracy is the worst form of government, except for all those other forms that have been tried from time to time. The chaotic nature of democracy means that it takes root well in societies capable of enduring this chaos. And we have witnessed that many democracies transplanted into society lacking this ability break down, leaving only a facade. However, ironically, the ability to cope with democratic chaos can only be cultivated within democracy itself. Thus, learning by doing is the way of democracy. This can be a cruel reality. As what Robert Kaplan wrote in his book, The Coming Anarchy, quote, democracy brutally reveals the health of the society in which it operates, unquote. Isn't it similar to the process of becoming an adult? Becoming an adult is difficult, but it is hard to understand what adulthood is without actually experiencing it. Now let us move on to my second point. How can we lead sustainability with democracy? Everyone is a slave to his own experiences, and I can only discuss the other countries in comparison with my own. I was born in 1966, and Korea's GDP per capita at that time was $124 US. And it increased to $7,500 when I began my career as a diplomat 33 years ago. And today, it is around $35,000. Korea's economic development is something unprecedented, stimulating much curiosity about the driving forces behind this success. The 2024 World Development Report, published recently by the World Bank, gives us a clue. This report focuses on the middle-income trap and identified Korea's case as a required reading for many countries seeking to escape this trap. This report explains that Korea's strategy of investment, infusion, and innovation was key. Investment is suggested for low-income countries, where promoted investment can effectively initiate economic growth. The infusion of technology through the opening, which enhances the productivity of an economy, is recommended as a main strategy for middle-income countries. And lastly, the World Bank emphasized that innovation, driven by the entrepreneurial enthusiasm and leadership, can lead to sustainable increase in productivity and economic growth. I believe the World Bank captured this well, and the contents of the report offer valuable lessons for us as we discuss sustainability. After the Korean War broke out in 1950, Korea was left in ruins. And สิ่งที่ต้องกล่าวถึงการที่ประเทศไทยได้เข้าร่วมสงครามเกาหลีนั้นเป็นหนึ่งในเรื่องราวทางประวัติศาสตร์
ทางประเทศไทยก็ได้เข้าร่วมกับสงครามเกาหลีนั้นได้นะประชาชนthe Korean people would like to thank the Thai people who have actually sent to join the Korean War.
Growth strategy supported by massive government investment effectively propelled it to become a middle-income country. And at that time, we were under what was often referred to as top-down democracy. As someone who received most of the education during the dictatorship, I do not agree with the dichotomy of top-down versus bottom-up democracy. We often say that Korea's democratization was achieved in 1987. When I was a junior in university, which also means that most of my education took place before democratization, I remember that what was called top-down democracy during the military dictatorship was far from true democracy. It is true that top-down democracy has often been used as an excuse to disguise regression or stagnation. However, I believe that democracy can only be attained its true essence when it is fundamentally bottom-up. After we became a middle-income country, however, the government-led growth strategy began to lose momentum. I believe the source of the strength that allowed Korea to overcome this challenge is the democratization achieved in 1987. The democratization made Korean economy more attractive on the international stage, enabling us to open up in the mid-1990s and to benefit from the power of infusion. In this process, the private sector chose to take risks, not through commands and plans, but in order to survive and to grow. The private sector in Korea, which adapted to the global market, acquired competitiveness. This virtuous cycle among democratization, opening, and innovation has led Korea to economic success. Furthermore, this cycle of democratization and economic progress illustrates a critical point. True sustainability arises not only from economic factors, but also from social cohesion and democratic engagement. When citizens feel empowered to participate in the political process, they are more likely to advocate for policies that promote long-term sustainability. And this also illustrates the three-eyed strategy. Three eyes meaning investment, infusion, innovation, identified the World Bank as a key strategy of Korea for escaping the middle income trap. Of course, democracy does not always succeed. Hitler's Third Reich was the product of a Weimar Republic, which had one of the most democratic constitutions. Japan's Taisho democracy ended up in militarism. When the chaos brought up by democracy exceeds the threshold that society can endure, people come to accept that a bad order is better than no order. I believe it is up to the members of each society to determine how much cohesion their society can withstand in the face of chaos. I have met many Thais who describes Thailand as a small country. However, Thailand is 5 times larger than Korea. South Korea chose to directly elect its president since 1987. At that time, its GDP per capita was only $3,500. South Korea has been a frontline state facing constant security threats from North Korea. What security threat does Thailand face? To me, as a humble observer, it seems that Thailand is in a position to take a larger bite of chaos called bottom-up democracy, although that is not for me to decide. In discussing the development of Thai democracy for sustainability, I would like to suggest to my dear Thai friends that they look at the examples of other countries, create a checklist for progressing toward democracy, and continuously check the health of their system. I believe that through this process, the Thai people will acquire the learning by doing necessary to discover a better functioning democracy through their excellence. I sincerely hope that Korea, to which I belong, and Thailand, where I live, both can nurture and strengthen democracy effectively. Thank you for listening.
แล้วครับ
Thank you so much, His Excellency Ambassador of Korea attached to Thailand. We have seen the comparative points at the end, so it makes us realize that Thailand has potential. We are a small country. Actually, Thailand is 5 times bigger than Korea. So in order to move forward toward democracy is not the too big matter of Thailand, because we have potential and we can create bottom-up democracy. Korea has had poverty, conflicts, pressures. The ideas and system are different from Thailand, so it's a great thing that the ambassador reflect of what are the idea system and bottom-up democracy led to how Korea developed their democracy in many dimensions. This is a great example of Thailand. And next, we're gonna share perspective from overseas presenters. Dr. Chingchai will lead you to that session, and Dr. Chingchai will be the moderator, and he will take us to see the President of Lao National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and also the Counselor of the Embassy of the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg in Thailand, and another senior economic consultant from Myanmar, and also let's say that Dr. Chingchai will present the perspective, and we are working on building up bottom-up democracy. So we're gonna be able to reap the experience from all of these speakers. And in the afternoon, there will be 4 breakout sessions. So whoever who want to go to the breakout session after the morning session, you have to log out and then you have to log back in the afternoon, and you're gonna see 4 breakout sessions. So in the morning there is only one choice, but in the afternoon there will be 4 breakout sessions that will lead to bottom-up democracy in 4 perspectives, and they are all interesting, and this is really reflect the demand of people. First is the well-being. So for the 4 breakout sessions, we will that the result of building up bottom-up democracy. That's why we organize 4 breakout group discussion to see how important they are. We would like you to listen to all of the discussion in 4 groups, because there will be many experts to share with you that each community what is their own problems and how they're gonna address their own problems. And importantly, the participation of people, of local people. Let's say that the first breakout session will be for well-being, for the good livelihood of local people. There will be many perspective. There will be the tourism enterprise. There will be the mayor of each area that will show us the example of success development. And the second breakout session is justice, will be composed of many experts with a lot of experience. Let's say that in the local areas they already have great experience, so we would like to share with others. Like let's say that we have more than 7,000 local administrative organizations. If one can do so, all others should be able to duplicate. If the LAO are not strong, the national system will not be strong after having the good well-being. So we have to think about, let's say that try to improve local economic and local health. It will lead to well-being and great justice, and it will lead to another step that is sustainable development. So how we gonna achieve well-being, justice, sustainable development? So the group 3 breakout discussion is so important about sustained development, and the last breakout session is for peace. After that, let's say peace is ultimately what we want to achieve, and we are ready for the seminar ways forward, how to build bottom-up democracy from various overseas presenter perspective. We would like to hand over to Dr. Chingchai Hanjelak.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the KPI, the annual KPI Congress. I would like to moderate this session in English.
just a few minutes to summarize on the presentation of our keynote speaker, Ambassador Park. Thank you so much, Ambassador Park. I think we learned a lot. I think you point out 5 important principles of democracy. You see, what you need is the accountability. I think, the rule of law, the conception that freedom is a universal value, and check and balance. And most important of all, I think when you mention about learning by doing, so the democracy, I don't think is an end in itself. It may end up later on, but the way to democracy or democratization is learning by doing. And it is the process. So I think we have learned a lot from you, Ambassador Park. Thank you again. ต่อจากนี้อยากจะขอแนะนำนะครับ
So now I would like to introduce our panelists, our foreign panelists. We have from Belgium, Dr. Jean-Pierre Verbies, and also from Luxembourg, Ms. Cassandra. And we also have one from Lao PDR, Kun Udet. These 3 panelists have experience and knowledge on bottom-up democracy.
The first panelist is Dr. Jean-Pierre Verbies. Actually, Jean-Pierre has been working with me on GMS for over 20 years. And he had his first degree from Université Catholique de Louvain, and then with the PhD from University of Hartford. From University of Oxford in UK. And he has long experience working in Thailand as an ADB representative. And then I had the opportunity or the honor to work closely with him on the GMS Greater Mae Khong Sub-Regional Economic Cooperation. I won't take any more of your time, and perhaps I will just let Dr. Jean-Pierre Verbies express his experience and opinion. Jean-Pierre, 1 minute for 20 minutes, and then we can follow up later. Please, Jean-Pierre.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Jingchai. Very good. Let me maybe go on over a few concepts first before talking about different models of bottom-up democracy. I mean, obviously, bottom-up democracy means that a political system where decision-making power and that's important, on selected political, economic, financial, and other issues are delegated at a lower level of governance, at the local level. Basically, it has been proved, but not always, that local people's participation in decision-making allows new ideas and projects to be developed and managed locally. So citizens basically at the local level create their own space to manage development issues and issues related to their life. It's bottoms up actually is not really, but bottoms up, or what we call democracy, actually also applies in the private sector. And the best example is Google. The staff who work for Google are given 20% of their time, actually to develop their own ideas, to come up with their own ideas. And so it's sort of at the corporate level, and Google is a very large corporation, it's quite successful. But of course, Google staff are all highly educated. They are very dedicated to their company. So it's not, when you talk about a country, that's not necessarily the case. So democracy, I think, at the end is really something, one of the concepts which is the most spoken about and written about, I think, in the world. Yet it's a concept which is extremely hard to export. There is no unique model at all in history. Now, if you look at some, I mean, I have been living in Asia since 45 years. I've been very much interested in history, and I think history tells you a lot about a country and how a country can evolve. But if you look more generally at different models of bottoms-up democracy which have developed in other countries, I mean, you see a number of factors which influence the creation of bottoms-up democracy. It can be cultural. I mean, for instance, look at Switzerland, look at Scandinavian countries, look at how it's done in the UK. It can be historical. I mean, France and the legacy of the French Revolution, Siam before King Rama V reform, so Siam before 1860, Germany before the creation of the empire in 1870, or if you look at Italy, pre-unification. I mean, you can see in all these countries the current governance systems, which have changed a lot since these periods I had mentioned, actually are inspired by that old history, how these countries were organized historically. And then even geography plays an important role. And for instance, in Switzerland, you all know that in Switzerland is probably one of the countries where there's most participation at the local level. One of the origins of that is that Switzerland is basically a mountainous country with a lot of valleys. And historically, where before modern transport, so when you lived in one valley, it took you 2 days or 3 days to go to the next valley. So people just had to look after themselves. But again, you cannot reproduce that anywhere else in the world, practically. I mean, maybe Afghanistan, in another way, is closer because it's similar. And even the previous governments and the current government back in Afghanistan, they have also all sorts of local landlords sometimes, but basically coming from the fact that they are isolated communities. Now, a functioning bottoms-up democracy is not at all just about voting or participation of people in community organizations. It's much more than that. And I think Ambassador talked about this before. I mean, there need to be a lot of checks and balances at all levels of government, national level, regional level, and local level. Moving to a more bottoms-up democracy is actually quite a costly, and I will come back, quite a costly operation because you have to develop these checks and balances also at the local level. Again, at the same time, it's obvious that, as I mentioned earlier, not all powers are delegated at the local level. So to define what you are going to delegate at the local level, to agree on that is extremely complex. And again, there are a lot of quite a few experiences in the world, and I will mention the French experience later on. So it takes a long time to decide what do you delegate at the bottoms up, at level of democracy bottoms up. So it's quite complex. again, a number of preconditions, I think Ambassador touched on it, is that it's important that at all levels of government there's a separation between the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary. Now that is, the legislative and judiciary obviously are more at the national level, but they are important. It's important that they exist at the national level and function to make sure that there is no abuse at the local levels. So it's sort of, these preconditions are important just to, as a precondition for a functioning bottoms-up democracy. Basically, what the idea is to prevent individuals and organizations to dominate political power in their own interest. I mean, it's quite obvious. And again, this is a problem which you find in every country, including in my country. Even at the local level, you have dynasties developing. I mean, so the father, the grandfather, and the son, they all are mayors of one city, for instance. But now, when you look at moving to bottoms-up democracy, I mean, unless you inherit it, but it's not often the case. To me, looking at history of the country is the most important, the historical and the political background, because history will tell you to some extent how decentralization can be done, can be best done. And I will talk more about decentralization now, because I think bottoms-up democracy requires what decentralization. Now, decentralization is a broad term. Then we have to see how you decentralize and what you decentralize. So again, there is no standard model, and I will give, in the case of Thailand, the French model before. So history and the model you propose basically will tell you the areas of government and decision-making that can be decentralized. So there are a lot of issues to look at: the capacity of the local communities, level of education, experience in people's participation in decision-making. It's an extremely complex process. Well, democracy, as the ambassador said itself, is a complex process, but decentralizing it and developing bottoms-up democracy is even much more complex. It requires significant investment and costly investment, both to develop it and then to put it in place with all the checks and balances. Obviously, any move to a bottoms-up system more bottoms-up political system will of course meet a lot of resistance. And again, there it depends on the history of the countries. If you look like Germany or Italy, basically up to the end of the 19th century, these countries were naturally decentralized because they were run in Germany by aristocrats and kings in different areas, like there was a king of Bavaria and so on, Saxony and so on. Italy, the same. They were even have a papal states from the Pope, run by the Pope. So they came from a situation which was decentralized naturally from history to a more centralized system, and then now, like in Germany, you have a federal system which would sort of come fairly naturally, because it's, instead of having a local king of Bavaria, you have a federal issue, Bavaria as a region. So what I would like to sort of explain briefly now is basically looking at Thailand, and as much as I can understand it, and France. The French, if you look at France, before the French Revolution, it was a very centralized state with an absolute monarchy, and then they were basically whatever, they were not called governors, they were called intendants, which ran represented the king at in the different parts of the country. So the French Revolution basically changed that. And initially, it was, the idea was to be very decentralized, because French Revolution brought in equality and so on. And so basically, the first concept was why we have to give the power back to people and decentralize. Now, very quickly, I mean, two years after the revolution, the rulers the ones who led the revolution realized we should not do this. And the reason is quite simple, and probably few people know it. It has to do with the fact that at that time, so 1790, half of the people living in France did not speak French. They spoke local languages, some and not understandable for each other. So the idea was, well, we need to do it. It must be a unified country, unified republic, and so we need to centralize. So this is 1792-93. From there on, after this was done, it has been an uphill battle to decentralize, or to have more the local communities more involved, moving towards a more bottoms-up democratic system. So nothing was done until 1870 about. Nothing was changed. Then it started changing to decentralization. So we are talking about 1870. Today, it is still work in progress. They're still going on, and I will come back to the details later on. If you look at Thailand, I mean, Thailand until King Rama V, the reforms, until the administrative reforms under King Rama V, Thailand was a fairly decentralized country, where basically many areas of Thailand were actually administered by local traditional rules, like in Pre, Ubon, Chiang Rai, and so on, Nan. Actually, these families still exist. But then Prince Damrong, the first Minister of Interior, decided that we should implement reforms which centralizes the country. So basically, to a system which we have now with governors and so on. And because obviously at that time, because some of these local rules were running their area quite independently from Bangkok, and there was the very big threat of colonization at that time. So it made completely sense to basically centralize the country. Interestingly, Prince Damrong did not get rid of these local rules. They were actually told, now you will be a governor. So as the governors today, so they became, from local rules or whatever, local aristocracy, they became civil servants, like governors today. And then the way of moving their power away was to move them around. As governor, you don't always stay in the same place, like today. So there is a rotation. And so that's what happened. And then the country has been very strongly centralized, similar to what the French experience was. So maybe briefly going over the French experience, after the revolution, so the system was organized essentially the communes or the villages, basically the traditional villages, and then they created departments, which in Thailand you would call provinces. The departments, the villages, the head of the villages were representing the state. The departments had a governor appointed, which were called préfet in France, and the governor was basically all-powerful. The governor there was a department council, but that council was not elected. That is after the after the French Revolution. Then as things moved on, around 1870, the first ideas of decentralization came, and the idea was there would be elected department councils, so basically provincial councils would be equivalent, would be elected, and the villages, the communes, the rules would, well, the administration would be elected also, but de facto they had no power, and it was still the préfet, so the equivalent of the governors in Tare today. They didn't have any power, and then things moved like this. So we are talking about 1870, 1880. Things moved like this until 1981, which is 100 years later. And then the first laws decentralizing and trying to create a bottoms-up democracy happen. I mean, the first reforms which were done is basically the préfet, so the equivalent of governor, still remain, but basically a system of legal checks and balances like audit and so on was created, and the department council, so the equivalent of a provincial council, they were elected, but this time they were given power, and the chairperson of that council basically was the main elected, was the main administrator of the department. So the préfet stayed, but the council got power. At the same time, they also created regions. The regions is an interesting part. You have these department or provinces, like you would say in Thailand, and then they created regions. So they grouped several departments into a region, and that region is run by an elected local government. So basically, that's sort of what you would call bottoms-up democracy. And the reason the departments were put together in region is that departments, or we would say provinces in Thailand, sometimes are not big enough to basically delegate to decentralize power to them. And again, there are, in a region, there are different departments, or again, you can say provinces, to put together because they have similar culture, they have similar economic interests, they have similar industrial development or potential of industrial development and so on. So it makes much more sense to have the region as a kind of a as a local government than having the departments. And the regions are now, in the case of France, they are basically, first the administrative system was reformed, so going from elected communes or villages still there, but now the mayor and the council there has much more authority over different things, local, like say primary education and so on, land use, communication and so on. And then you have the department which still exists with the préfet, but he's still somebody from the central government, but there is a council there which is elected and which looks after a number of issues like basically health, social services, construction, public infrastructure and so on, secondary education. And then you have the region, and the region is essentially looking after regional economic planning, and policy, industrial development, professional education, so there are different elected bodies have different attributes and issues they actually run. And for instance, the regions like in Thailand, when there are visits from officials of France, you can have the region Aquitaine, which is close to Bordeaux and the Bordeaux wine area. I mean, they grouped several departments there together because they all produce wine. It was not only wine, but other things. And it makes sense to do marketing and trade arrangements together. So in the case of the regions, in the case of France, also do actually trade missions, for instance. And of course, the government still does, but the regions also does. And again, they have not, decentralization was done by preserving some of the structures of the past. So like the préfet, the elected person is still there, and still has a role in the sense that, like say, when there is disasters and things like that, when it is something which you need the state to come, then you basically need, you go to the préfet. So I think it's a structure which is interesting to study, and it also shows, it clearly shows the complexity on how you do it. And as I mentioned earlier, it's still work in progress. There are still things today which are being looked at on how to better manage the system. Well, to give an example, when the regions were created in 1980, there were 27 regions. Now there are 15, because it was realized that 27 is too many, and it makes more sense to have bigger regions with common interest. And so now there are 15, and that makes much more sense, because if you, like say, do trade missions or so on, or you look at the number of political decisions and so on, it's better to have a certain size than rather very small entities. So, I mean, there's a lot of documentation written by the archives of the French National Assembly, the Parliament. A lot of documents written about the history of how the process worked and the difficulties of doing it. So maybe I will just leave it there. Thank you, Dr. Chai.
Well, thank you very much, Jean-Pierre. Let me just summarize this, briefly summarize. I think Jean-Pierre talked about, the parallel, the similarity between the French model and the Thai model. And he took the look at it from the historical point of view and mentioned about the similarity of the evolution from centralization to the decentralization, which is still ongoing process. He's talking about local dynasty. And then he repeat often the importance of check and balance and the complication of the administrative structure or system in the process of decentralization, which to him is still going on. Well, thank you so much, Jean-Pierre. Now let us move to the second panelist, Ms. Cassandra Lenouvier. She's the Deputy Head of Mission, Embassy of Luxembourg. She served briefly in the UN system on emphasizing on the human rights. I think he went to the same school with me, Institut Politique, but she studied in Paris. I studied in Grenoble, but she got another degree in history, and it's my pleasure to give you Ms. Cassandra Lenouvier. Please.
Thank you, and Sawadika. So I will present to you today bottom-up democracy in Luxembourg, how we do it, how the model works for us. And so for this, I would like to present the pathway of Luxembourg towards democracy and the participative democracy we have today. So I hope you can see the slides. Like Dr. Verbier said, geography is important, and to understand the things about Luxembourg, you first have to know where it is and understand the size of the country. So Luxembourg is a country which is situated in the middle of Western Europe, between France, Belgium, and Germany. And is quite a small country, as you can see on the map. So in my presentation this morning, I would like to briefly just explain the historic milestones for Luxembourg's pathway towards democracy, and then go to an analysis of the direct democracy tools we have in Luxembourg, and also the specificities of Luxembourg's demography. To understand a little bit how it works with the population in Luxembourg, and then finally talk about the challenges and opportunities of bottom-up democracy as we have it in Luxembourg. So first of all, the historical developments. So I will be very brief on this, but first, to understand the pathway of Luxembourg, it is that Luxembourg was in the 19th century and in its history a few times under the control of various European powers. So it was at some point a part of France. It was also very close and part of Netherlands. So this position often limited Luxembourg's sovereignty and ability of its people to participate politically, because there were these levels. Luxembourg was a part of another kingdom. However, with the rise of democratic movements throughout Europe in the early 19th century, the ideas of political rights and representation started to gain ground in Luxembourg. So in 1815, Luxembourg was established as a Grand Duchy in personal union with the Netherlands under King William I, which initially left little room for political autonomy for citizen involvement. But this set the stage for later developments as political movements in Luxembourg began to push for constitutional rights, but also for greater independence from foreign influence. So then in the 20th century, in the early 20th century, so in 1919, after World War I, at that point, Luxembourg, in 1890, so but I won't be long on this, but there were successions issues in the monarchy. So that's how Luxembourg was not a part anymore of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, but had its own Grand Duke, and was not, because before the King of the Netherlands was also the Grand Duke of Luxembourg. So in 1919, Luxembourg already had its own monarchy. But after World War I, again, in the two world wars, Luxembourg's neutrality was violated. And after the First World War, the country adopted a series of political reforms. The first one was universal suffrage, which allowed men and women over the age of 21 to vote, regardless of their status or wealth. This advancement, recognized in the importance of broad citizen participation, it is also at that point that Luxembourg made the fact to vote compulsory. At the same time, another reform was the introduction of consultative referendum, which allowed citizens to have a more direct voice while maintaining the central role of parliament. One of the first, or the first referendum, we didn't have that many of them, but I will talk about this later, was a referendum about monarchy. If we wanted to keep monarchy, to stay a monarchy. And this referendum won, so we have still today our monarchy with 80% of the votes from the citizens. Then very briefly, after the Second World War, after the trauma of occupation in Luxembourg, we wanted to reaffirm democracy and rule of law. And then prevent the rise of authoritarian threats in the future. So we wanted to emphasize transparency, fair elections, but also accountability for the government. Besides that, Luxembourg also played a very active role in international cooperation, mainly and was a founding member of a few international organizations, namely the European Coal and Steel Community, which is today the European Union, but also the United Nations. Yes, so let me then describe a little bit how democracy and which tools we have for direct citizen participation. So first of all, to understand the closeness of the population with authority, in Luxembourg, you first need to understand a few demographic things. So, as I said, voting is compulsory in Luxembourg. So if you don't vote, if a Luxembourgish citizen doesn't vote without being able to give a good reason why he or her was not able to vote, they can be fined with a fine from 100 to 250 euros, which for second offense can be then a fine which is then higher. Therefore, every citizen is obliged to make themselves familiar with the voting system in Luxembourg, and also we have a very small country, as I said before. So we have only 650,000 inhabitants, which a very small surface to cover also. Citizens in Luxembourg and elected representatives are usually share common networks and easily meet within the country. Then we also have an accessible parliamentary system, which means that citizens can attend public sessions of the Chamber of Deputies, which is our parliament. And Parliament also encourages citizen participation online. So you have the website of the Parliament where you can find all the documents that are discussed in Parliament. But you also have a TV webcast for public sessions. You can attend the public sessions if you want to and sit in Parliament, or you can also watch them on TV or online. Then elective representatives are really present in local community. Many of the representatives actually live in the same neighborhoods, and fun fact, in Luxembourg you can actually meet your representatives not only locally but also members of government sometimes. So true story, you can actually meet them while grocery shopping. Or they can sit next to you on the other table in restaurant. So this brings a very close relationship between elected representatives and citizens. Then I wanted also to briefly present to you our ballot, how the way we vote in Luxembourg. So it's very small here on the screen, but we have a very particular way, and to my knowledge, I think not many countries do that like this. But we have, for example, this is for the legislative, so for the national elections, the last ones. So this, we have 4 regions, so South, North, Center and East region. And for each region, we have to vote for our elected representatives in parliament. So the number of votes you have, so each voter has, depends on the number of seats. So for example, here it's the Center region. So you have 21 votes. So one voter has 21 votes and can distribute them as they like. There are 3 ways to distribute your votes. So the first one is you can, if you have, so first of all the lists you see here on the screen are the list from the different parties. They have to present as many names as there are seats open. So either you can cross the dot that's above the party's list, and so then you distribute 1 vote to each of the members of this list, or you can, and you have always 2 boxes behind the name of one representative. So you can either, and there are a few of them that you prefer, you can cross 2, the 2 squares behind them and give them 2 votes, and then distribute to some of them 2 votes, some of them 1, and for the rest none, within the same party. But you can also do the same and give your votes and distribute your votes across the different parties if you want. And then in that way, you can a little bit pick and choose and mix and match the different persons or the different programs you like. This also encourages, we call this kind of voting vote by panachage, because it's a little bit of mixing. And this underlines also how important it is to have proximity with voters in Luxembourg, as it encourages also candidates to vote for the people they know. A second thing is that we have in Luxembourg a coalition government, so we have a few parties who sit together, who have to then mix together their programs, which is called the coalition agreement, which will then be the government's program for the next 5 years. Then very briefly, we have a multi-level system of governance. So this joins the previous presentation we had. So we have regions, we have communes, especially in the several communes and local communities. Local authorities are very close to the residents. So there are a lot of ways to meet them and talk with them. Then we have also a system which is called a tripartite, or tripartite, which is composed by, its role is to find solutions on social and economic matters, and it's composed by government members, syndicates, and businesses. So where we had these tripartites, for example, is on a very large-scale crisis, for example, in the 1970s, in the steel crisis, or more recently during COVID crisis in 2020. Then we also have in Luxembourg more than 600 inhabitants, 600,000 inhabitants, and half of them are actually Luxembourgish citizens. The other half are foreigners living long-term residents in Luxembourg, and so recently they got the right to vote into local elections. Then I would like to present to you 3 tools for citizen consultations we have in Luxembourg. So we have the petition system. We have 2 forms of them. You have ordinary petitions, and which you can submit to the parliament. without without any rules. But then the petition committee will assess them and see if they can be discussed or if they deem them interesting to be discussed in Parliament. Or the public petitions, which are online, to be submitted online, if they manage, a public petition manages to gather 4,500 signatures within 42 days, meaning 6 weeks, then it is debated in Parliament, whereas then when it's debated in Parliament, then depending on what the Parliament members decide will become a law or not. So 2 examples. We had one petition for the official adoption of the red lion flag, so to change our 3 stripes flag to a flag with also the lion, which is the symbol of the monarchy. This petition didn't gather many signatures, so couldn't be debated in Parliament through that. But nevertheless, it sparked a lot of public interest on the topic. Another one, which then gathered 14,000 signatures, was the teleworking regulations petition during COVID. So the petition asked for enhanced flexibility, clearer guidance, and better infrastructure support for teleworking during COVID. Then we have the referendum. So there are 3 ways to trigger a referendum in Luxembourg. You have the parliamentary initiative. We had one in 1937, which was called the Muzzle Law, Muzzle Law petition, because the government decided to have a law for, and it was stated, law for the defense of political and social order, which was aimed to ban the Communist Party in Luxembourg. But this proposal led to significant political outrage and protest in Luxembourg, which then the parliament decided to ask for a referendum about that, and this law was then defeated by referendum. Then we have government initiative. The government can ask for a referendum, then it has to go through a vote in Parliament. If they have the majority, then the referendum happens. There we had, in 2005, the EU Constitution referendum, so to see if we agreed with the EU Constitution for Europe. There, the referendum won by 57 against 43%. And finally, we have a citizen initiative. So there we didn't manage until now to have a referendum. There is one that was very close to it. So in 2021, we had citizens gathered signatures. So in order to, that's the process how to ask for this. So citizens have to organize a referendum request and then submit this request to signatures. And then they need 25,000 valid signatures from voters. And there, I say voters because for the previously for the petitions, you can have signatures from any long-term resident, but here in the referendum, you need signatures from voters, meaning Luxembourgish nationals. So, nevertheless, this attempt, even though it didn't trigger a referendum, triggered a lot of discussions about the constitutional reforms. And some of them were actually also taken upon. Then there is another line, a last one, which has never been used. Why? Because it's a reasoned proposal for legislation. So actually, the citizens have to draft a real draft law, so by themselves, and then they have to submit it and have 125 voters submitting it together. and then collect 12,500 voters' signatures within 4 weeks. So because it's too difficult to get, it has not yet been used. Then quickly, I wanted to also talk about the challenges of these different tools in Luxembourg. So one critique we can have against Luxembourg is that approximately 50% of the residing population in Luxembourg have actually the right to vote in national elections, because it's just Luxembourgish national citizens, which I said are half of the population in Luxembourg. So this is going to trigger and to be a challenge for us in the next few decades, because it poses the problem of representativeness of the people actually living in Luxembourg. Then another challenge is that for the petitions, officially we have two criteria, which are it has to be for general interest, and the second one, you cannot submit the same petition more than once a year. Then unofficially, we also have two other criteria. The first one is that it has to be useful, and then define useful. And they shall not intend to discriminate. And there we had recently an example of two contradicting petitions. So after a lecture in Luxembourg, in a Luxembourg high school, a drag queen gave a lecture in a public high school, and then it triggered a petition to ask for LGBTIQ+ matters not to be discussed in schools. Quickly afterwards, another petition came asking for the contrary, so that we do not talk enough about it in schools. And so this shows that for very divisive issues, petitions do not really help, because then at the end, what the government does is that they talk about, they will implement what they have in their own program. Petitions can make a difference, but more in niche or specific areas, where we have seen quite recently in 2023 the banning of virginity certificates petition, where they asked to actually in the law in Luxembourg to include this as a formal interdiction in Luxembourg. Another one was a petition to have better services for oncology in Luxembourg for children, specifically for children. And there, on both of these petitions, the Ministry of Health has taken steps to improve the situation. Then I wanted to talk about opportunities, and this will also be my conclusion. So opportunities to enhance bottom-up democracy. How about the use of the new technologies? It will to enhance public consultation. So we have in Luxembourg the petitions that can be submitted online, but there are also a few countries that are trying to create online voting platforms, so that you don't have to go to your. So in Luxembourg we don't have this problem, because usually where you vote is very close by to your home, but in some countries it's very difficult to go to the polls. So this would bring its opportunities, but also challenges, because how could we ensure, and that's what we talked about before, is that we need to ensure also checks and balances, but also to ensure that the voting system also is cannot be misused. Then there are also new ways of involving citizens in meaningful consultations. We could think about, for example, in Luxembourg, in the sustainability area. So for 2050, for Horizon 2050, we created what we call a Beerger Committee Luxembourg, where citizens were selected so to represent the diversity in Luxembourg, and 30 citizens were selected to have this committee about sustainable development and ways to reduce carbon use in Luxembourg, and which discussions actually meaningfully contribute to the strategy of Luxembourg for 2050. And I will stop here. And sorry for being long.
Well, thank you very much for your very comprehensive presentation. Let me just summarize it in 2 words. I just think you mentioned about the important factor also mentioned by KP, the geopolitical factor at Luxembourg that you mentioned that is separate from the Netherlands. It's a small country and small population. Then you took the historical approach to talk about the pathway towards today democracy, emphasizing on the bottom-up democracy and the inclusive governance, which are based on the citizen participation in the parliament, which create the inclusive governance. You mentioned about important factors for the bottom-up democratization. I think you talk about the transparencies, fair election, and accountability of the government. You mentioned about the challenge and opportunity of bottom-up democratization process in Luxembourg. For example, you mentioned about the risk of overload of petition system. But on the other hand, you are quite optimistic on the opportunity to enhance bottom-up democratization process using the model technologies such as online, for instance. Well, thank you very much, Ms. Cassandra. And now let I move to the last presenter, panelist, Mr. Udet Suvarnawong. Have been the chairman of the Lao Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and a long-time friend of Thailand, and in general, and me personally. So, Dr. Udet had several experience and qualifications. Well, he has postgraduate certificate in forest industry from the Swedish University of Agricultural Science. He's the managing right now director of the SCL Commercials Société Commerciale du Laos, and as I mentioned, currently president of Laos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Without any further delay, may I now give you Mr. Udet Suvarnawong. Udet, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Chinchai. I think when Jean-Pierre Weber has elaborated on the history of the democracy in Europe and the full democracy you have from the Duchy of Luxembourg. I think that I will give you some insight of the Laos People Democratic Republic, which is a different system of democracy, which is derived from a single party, which is governing the country, similar to Vietnam and the People's Republic of China. When a lot of Western countries think that our democracy is not really bottom up, but in reality, our government and the party is very decentralized. Our public system is very strong at village level. So when you have a strong public system at village level, you involve the ethnic minorities, the women's, and also the youth into the decision making of the government. So that is the strong point of our democracy there, and what I want to see. In fact, this has to do with the challenges we have in Laos, for example. A small country, landlocked, and also very modest economy, and a diversity in the population, ethnic minorities, illiteracy, and poverty is quite a challenge for the government. So to develop a bottom-up democracy in Laos will be very challenging because of the cost as to get all the structure to get the people involved, and also to get also the structure that could control the different bottom-up element, but it will not serve a particular clan or hierarchic family, and that is also will be a quite big challenges. So we still have a lot of limitation on the bottom-up participation due to a lot of those challenges we have. But we have also, despite this limitation, the Lao government has taken a step toward to involve the community, especially in economic and development projects. I think that we have programs like the Village Development Funds, I think, and we've got local consultation. So we, in the development of new infrastructure in the villages or in there are consultation, not only with the head of community, but also with the youth and women. I think that I have to tell you that the women unions in Laos are very strong, and they're also very politically involved, and they have their voice in a different level. And our system is that we have an assembly, a national assembly at district level, which is represented by women's head of communities, the heading communities in different regions, and by the youth and by the business community. So the government and the party has really set a kind of, so not the people who are in the community are represented. So this kind of, I see that it's kind of participation at district level up to the provincial level and at the national level. So we have 3 tiers of assembly. This provides comment on the new regulation, laws, and so on, what is promulgated by the government. So that is also one of the, I can say that it's maybe a hybrid between the bottom-ups and what you call this democracy populaire, what you call it, what we have. So this participation initiative encourage the local input of community on specific issues. For example, education, and also the problem we had in the past is that sometimes when you develop and you have companies coming in from, they tend to not to involve the community. So the government has set up a kind of system where the community has to be consulted. So that, and now when you have the climate change, you have all this pollution coming up with the new project coming in, then the community need to be consulted. I think we have also, especially with the help of development partners, we have been able to catalyze the development to be more green, to be more climate friendly. So that is one issue that I think. So in education also, this is a big challenge because to come with a bottom-up democracy, you need education and mindset. But in Laos, you have a different ethnic minority. In our country, a number of hill tribes kids or pupils, they start to speak Lao only when they are 7 or 10 years old. And they speak their mother language. So when we go into education, it's already at 10 or 12 years old. That's why literacy is still a big problem. So we have how to get, this is a big challenge to get the bottom-up democracy to be in. So still, we need to get the education to be in the forefront of the minorities in the rural area especially. So that is one thing that the education and the digital connectivity. I think digital connectivity, now in Laos we have 80% of mobile access. So that is also one area where we think that is a potential for us to educate the people about their needs to participation, their rights to protest, and their rights also to present new ideas to the concerned authority. So that is one thing. So we need the government has a structure where the youth organization and the women organization are priorities. So that's why when you go to visit the community, you will see a very strong women leaderships there, and also a very strong proposition they have in their community. So, and this is very good. It's a strong point that we have in Lao PDR. I think that I think that it's also when I go to talk to somebody in the communists, if you don't involve the women, the development will not be feasible. So that is one point. So we still have a lot of challenge in the bottom-up. So the challenge, I think we have been in very detail. But for me is the cultural and social barrier is one of the challenges. When you go to the countryside and in the city is a different culture, and also the clan, they clash each other, and in the culture of Laos, we can see that the clan plays a lot of the minority clans play a lot of pressure to the decision making as well. So I think it's the same in every country, but in Laos it's very strong. So that's why the cultural and social barrier is also one. And also, we also move before from a monarchy to the democratic populaire. But still, like you said in France, still this maintenance of the hierarchy, is still there. So in some places, not all of it. So this is one thing. Of course, we lack of resource and capacity to maintain to develop this bottom-up democracy. So we need money. We have to be good economy to be able to educate and also get people informed about their rights and get the people to also to participate, especially the civil society or public institutions. So that is the two main challenge, I think. And the problem we have also, I have found, I'm also working in the rural development in many years with the Ministry of Agriculture and also with scientists. The coordination is very important between the different provinces, districts, and so on. And when you get, when the system is not structured enough, then you lack the coordination. And it's very, the government trying to re-centralize, not decentralize again, in some of the development. And so the thing is that, should we re-centralize or decentralize more? It's a question mark. Because re-centralizing is good, but it is not democratic. But if you decentralize so much, no coordination, it's anarchy. So we have to be in the middle of it. So the coordination and efficiency is very important. And I think that it's not only in Laos, but in many of our countries. So the thing also in the local area, you have local elites. The people that are driving the force, the one who are encouraging people to move. They are very important also. In some place you cannot find it. So, or some place we are too strong. We influence too much. So this is also one of the challenge. So how to get those people to be also in the whole system and also to work together and coordinate each other. And of course, everything is that how that need to be sustainable. And sustainability is to have a good economy. And also the public services that people are required, like water, electricity, and also the different services that we need. Then I think that we can move on by steps to the bottom-up democracy, I feel like in Europe, and so on. So that is I'm not going to say more than that because already Jean-Pierre has tell us more than that, but maybe there will be some questions, maybe later on I can talk it. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Udet. Very interesting presentation on the Lao experience. I think if I'm not mistaken, you call it the hybrid democracy. And you also mentioned quite an innovative features, not mentioned by other presenters, the role of women, in the bottom-up democratization, the role of what you call แม่หญิงลาว which I think has playing a very important role, pushing to push for the bottom-up democratization. You mentioned about problem in education, due to ethnic diversity. And you are also using technologies, like in the case of Luxembourg, to well, you mentioned about 80% of citizens now own the mobile phone. So I think that's a tool, the technological tool, to put forward bottom-up democratization process. I think, and lastly, you mentioned quite an interesting issue of democratization bottom-up. You mentioned about the dilemma of pushing for decentralization as opposed to the anarchy in the society. So I think we probably now come to this, what we call the question and answer. So let me just give the floor back to the organizer in terms of correcting questions, and I will see who I should assign to answer those questions. Okay, thank you again, all the three panelists. I think we are talking about we learn about different experience of Luxembourg. Not really Belgium, which also touching on the similarity between the French system and the Thai system, and largely from Mr. Udet on the Lao experience. So now let me just give the floor back to the organizer, please.
ขอบคุณอย่างสูงนะครับท่านอาจารย์ชิงชัย
Thank you very much, Ajahn Ching Chai, and all the speakers, the panelists, and all the three speakers, then including Mr. Jean-Pierre and from Belgium, and Kun Cassandra from Luxembourg, and Kun Udet from Laos. So we've got a lot of interesting issues that were raised, and some which would contribute to our further discussion this afternoon in these different meeting rooms. So this afternoon we already have learned the experiences from different countries. We will split into 4 rooms. Then the first one is on building democracy from and how they. So that is on bottom-up democracy for well-being. That was the first room, and the speakers in this room will be people with experience from different provinces, from Khon Kaen, from the community tourism, and from the citizens groups, and talking about how things are moving in Nakhon Si Thammarat, including children. So we have the chair of the Youth and Children and Youth Council of Thailand talking. And then the second room will be on bottom-up democracy for justice. This is going to be moderated by the King Prachadipok Institute director, and then we have participants from Thammasat University, the Ministry of Justice, And for the third room, the topic of discussion will be bottom-up democracy for sustainable development, how we can build sustainable development from bottom-up democracy. So we panelists will include people from the Chamber of Trade, from the academics, and also from civil society groups. And then we also have then Dr. Satithorn from the KPI will be moderator. Then the last room is actually for democracy, for peace. So this is the room number 4, and we know that the world is facing a bit of being shaken up by a few conflicts around the world. And so when we talk about peace and democracy for peace, this is going to be more and more important in the world today, because everybody wants peace. And so how do we build bottom-up democracy for peace? This will be, the panelists will be Professor Surachai Wankeo from Chulalongkorn University, Dr. Ching Chai and Kun Chachai from the Community Council. And we also have the foreign speakers as well, and in this room. So one thing that KPI Congress has prepared for you all is to give out gifts for you if you fill out the evaluation form for us. So this will be the evaluation for the morning session. So we would like to invite all of you to fill out the evaluation forms, and you will be receiving gifts such as the Starbucks coupons and so on.
มี50 รางวัล เพราะฉะนั้นก็ทำจริงๆแล้วแทบจะมอบให้กับเกือบจะทุกคน
We have quite a lot of gifts, so 50 or so. So please join us. And those receiving the gifts can check your own name on the website.
พระปกเกล้าจะได้รู้ว่าสิ่งที่ทำมานั้นได้ผลสำเร็จมากน้อยแค่ไหนเพื่อ
Because this evaluation is very important, because we need your recommendation about how we can improve our Congress organization. So now you have to log out for the lunch break, and then you log in again. But in the afternoon you can log in to different rooms. Remember, the 4 rooms. So, and what's important is that you also have to register for the afternoon sessions. And the students, the current students, can actually gain extra credit from attending these meetings, these seminars. So
ด้วยกันซึ่งบ่ายวันนี้ดิฉันมองว่าสำคัญเหมือนกันนะคะซึ่งถือว่า
But we also have tomorrow. This is the second day, so please remain with us, and we are be talking about important things. So, but we finish the morning session now. So please log in again for the afternoon session.